Okay, welcome to the show. I am your host, basketball data nerd Lucas McNelly. No guest today, it's just me here. I've got some guests lined up that I'm hoping to record in the next couple days and weeks, which I think you guys are gonna really like. But for now, you're stuck with me. So what we're gonna talk about today is shot clocks, and I started a petition to get shot clocks. There's been some movement, as there is every time this year. There's a little more movement to try to get the shot clocks in there because everyone watches the tournament games and goes, my God, we need a shot clock. And this year was way worse than previous years. So there's more movement. And so there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that I shouldn't really talk about. But hopefully it's going to have make some progress. But anyway, so I started a petition to try to get the word out that we need, because it's sort of a public relations battle at this point. So let's talk about the shot clocks. So the first thing anyone will tell you when you talk to them, whether they're for it, whether they're indifferent, whether they're against it, is that they're inevitable, which should end the conversation, but apparently it does not. We all know they're inevitable. So we had for a while, we had 8 states had shot clocks, and that was back before the NFHS National Board allowed states to do shot clocks. And so the reason we couldn't have a shot clock then was because we would lose our vote on some rules committee nonsense, which who cares? Like, it's like saying, hey, we can't have universal health care because Susan Collins will lose her committee seat that she's held for 40 years. Like, who cares? Like, just let's fix the thing and then she can deal with her own ego later. But that was seriously one of the issues for a while. But that's out of the way now. So in prior to the 22-23 season, there were 8 states. That's when they said, okay, you guys can do a shot clock without losing your precious seat on the rule committee or whatever it is. Since then, we're up to 27 states. So this is happening very fast, very, very quickly. I would imagine within 5 years, we'll be over 45 states. By 2030, I bet we're at 50. So this is coming. It's coming fast. It's coming faster than the people stuck in the mud and want to stop it. So if you tell me that something's inevitable and it's coming within a couple years, I stop trying to stop it and I start going, okay, well then let's figure out how to do it. Because when winter comes back around, you're gonna want to get the firewood. You're not gonna be like, oh no, hey, winter. Pff, I don't like that idea. Just go get. Let's figure out how to get the firewood. Um, so the big thing is cost. We all know this. Apparently, we all know this. But then every time you bring up the shot clock, someone will come. People just come in waves. It's ridiculous. Because if you've been having this conversation for as long as I have, people come in waves. Are like, hey, who's gonna pay for this? Like they've just found the big flaw, like they're Columbo, and they've figured out the big flaw in the arch criminal's plan, or whatever. I'll tell you who's gonna pay for it. Not you. Okay, you're not gonna have to pay for it. Your Aunt Susan's not gonna have to pay for it. It's not coming out of the music budget. It's not coming out of the lacrosse budget. It's coming from people who have money and want to see this happen. So in big schools, what you'll have is they'll just be able to pay. They'll be able to pay for it pretty easily. In a lot of communities, in your say like your class A or class B, there's a local business who can fund this pretty easily. I went a couple years ago. This is probably before COVID. Just on a whim, I was at our bank and I was talking to the bank manager. I was like, hey, so let's say hypothetically, and this is not a big town. This is Waldoboro. This is, it's a very small town. I said, let's say hypothetically that someone came in here, the school came in here and said, hey, we got to get a shot clock. It's going to cost like $5,000, something like that. Is that something that you guys would be interested in financing or, donating or whatever? And they said, oh yeah, that's not hard. That's easy. That's a no-brainer. So, if you can find that, then there's car dealerships, there's mechanics, there's tons of local businesses. It's the easiest thing in the world to fundraise for. It really is. You might have an issue in your smaller schools, your North Havens, your Vinyl Havens, some places up in the county. And honestly, what probably happens there is someone raises money for a group of them, and then you know, we go from there. What a lot of states have done is they'll start with the big schools. They'll say, so I looked at South Dakota because South Dakota was one of the original 8. And I thought, well, that's a state that's pretty wide open and pretty diverse in terms, not in terms of diversity, but in terms of, you know, landscape and all that. And that's the state with a higher poverty rate than us. And I thought, well, if they can do it, then what's different about them than us? And North Dakota also did it, same issues. They have 3 classes. They started with their biggest class, and then a couple years later, they added their second class, and then a couple years after that, they added their smallest class. Their smallest class is Class B. They have AA, A, and B. Their smallest class is Class B. There are 73 schools in their smallest class. It's enrollments of 89 and under, but they only count the first 3 grades, so it's roughly equivalent to our Class D. So they have more than twice as many Class D schools as we do. They managed to figure this out pretty quickly. They've had it since, I should have written that down, I want to say 2015 is when they expanded it to their smallest class, but that was pretty quick going from the biggest class to the smallest class. Really, really fast. So they were able to do it. North Dakota was able to do it. It's a similar situation. Minnesota was one of the originals. They have a similar situation. I mean, there's a lot of small towns in Minnesota that are on lakes or something. So I mean, it's been done. It's not, there's nothing unique about our situation that makes it uniquely difficult. And if you're talking about trying to raise $5,000, then that's not very much. I mean, I used to do crowdfunding consulting for like Kickstarter campaigns, things like that. And I wouldn't even look at campaigns below 5,000 because 5,000 is just not hard to raise. So given if you gave a community, even a really small one, 6 months to raise $5,000, it's not hard. And I believe in Minnesota, the state organization was able to cut a deal with a manufacturer to get a discount because they were sort of basically buying shot clocks in bulk. So that might be a thing that's available. And then there's just deep pockets around the state who will finance this sort of thing. And it's, LL Bean could write a check for this tomorrow and they wouldn't miss it. And it's pretty much, in terms of fundraising, it's kind of a layup, I think. Okay, so the other issue, so let's talk a little bit more about these other states. So I did some research and I looked at 4 or 5 different states. And I found old news articles. And when you look at these news articles from the 3 or 4 years before they got their shot clocks and the big debate, and I swear to God, it's word for word the debates we're having. Like political talking points. If you'd watch, Daily Show when Jon Stewart was there and he would just run the loops of the talking points and how these people are just saying the exact same thing because they get the piece of paper from the party saying, hey, this is what we're going to say. And they sound exactly like we do now. It's the same debates, and it's just the same slow chipping away at people's resistance and people not wanting to change and things like that. And then the biggest thing they would say in each one of them is when you would look at the articles afterwards, you would see people going, my God, this is awesome. Almost universally awesome. They go, it's fixed the stalling problem that we had, which was out of control, which we have. And no one is going away from it. No one's going, oh man, this was really not worth it. It is pretty stupid. Universally, people love it. Now, not universally, because there's crazy people who are, stuck in the past. There's a dude on Facebook trying to get rid of the 3-point line right now. So there's always that. So, those people aside, the approval rating for a shot clock when they get it is really, really high. So let's talk now about the stalling problem. I don't know who came up with this free throw rule. Well, I know who. It was the NFHS. But they didn't really think it through. I can't imagine, because it doesn't work without a shot clock. the whole the 5 fouls per quarter, no 1-and-1. It's a disaster when it comes to games without shot clocks. It works with the shot clock. We can see it in women's college basketball. It works fine, but it just becomes stall central. I think Brendan Terrell was the first one to sort of connect the dots on that and go, hey, I think it's the free throw rule that's making this worse, because the stalling problem went from annoying last year to an epidemic this year. I saw 43 games, and in roughly 75% of them, there was a stall, which is ridiculous. And the only ones where there weren't a stall were teams like G&G, where they're like, screw that, we're not stalling. Or the game was just so close that you couldn't stall. Or no one had the forethought to start stalling in the third quarter because teams were stalling in the third quarter. I saw teams stalling in the first half, and my God. And so you didn't see it as much in the regular season because there's less urgency to win that one game, right? So in the regular season, if you lose, you lose, unless you're like on the bubble for, heel points and not making the tournament, the must win game. And even then, because of heel points, no one's really sure what a must win game is. There's just sort of we really do need this one, but maybe we can back in without it. But anyway, so you're more likely to play it out in the regular season because you're trying to work on stuff, and nobody likes to stall. But in a playoffs, it's one and done. So you got a 5-point lead with 2 minutes left. I get it. You want to win that one game. You don't really care about the larger issues at play here. But when you're watching 43 games and every three of the four games in the session have a stall, you're just, my God, it's unwatchable. And you maybe don't notice it if you're only coming to 2 or 3 games, or if you're just watching it at home on streaming. It becomes less of an issue because you can get up, get a beer, pause it, whatever. But if you're sitting there live, my God, it's painful. And it's not just me saying that. I think most people who saw more than 20 games just couldn't take it anymore. So there's that. What I think you get one of the big arguments against it is that shots will be rushed, but and I thought about charting this out, but then I realized it was just going to tell me what I already know, and it seemed like a lot of effort. There's very few possessions that are shorter than 35 seconds where a team's trying to score. Very, very few. Very few. Maybe 2-3 a game. Just like, in college basketball games that you're watching this weekend, or in NBA games or whatever. There's 2 or 3 possessions a game where a team's trying to score, can't score within the shot clock period, and then there's a turnover, and that's good because that means your defense is working really hard, and that's a thing that coaches want. They want their defense to be able to work very hard. And what is going on with my hat? Anyway, so that's, it's I think we want to encourage more playing of basketball and less stalling, and a shot clock is going to encourage teams to play defense. It's much easier to get your kids to lock in for 35 seconds on defense if they know that there's a reward to it. It's the same as the 5-second violation on an inbounds or something like that. You want to work really hard, play defense, lock it down, and if the team has to take a rush shot because you've worked your ass off for 34 seconds and they've got to fire up something desperate, that's good. That means that that one team did something good, did a good basketball thing, and forced the other team to make a mistake. And that's what we want, rather than just standing out by half court and dribbling the ball for a while. And on the flip side of that, on the offensive side, instead of teaching kids how to stall and how to stand at half court, you're going to have to want to, teach them how to get into their actions faster, how to get a shot off when there's 5 seconds left, how to get a good shot, how to move the ball more so that you're getting something that's open, because no defense is good enough that if you really move the ball well, no defense is fast enough to prevent you from getting an open look. So there's an element of it'll encourage better basketball. I think people think it will not, but I really believe it will encourage better basketball on both sides of the ball, because you're going to have to be focusing more on these little things to try to make sure you're getting good looks during the game and not just throwing things up. And, it's very few possessions where it's going to come down to a shot clock violation. You're not going to have teams. This isn't kindergarten basketball where it takes 30 seconds to get down the floor because no one knows how to dribble. I mean, if you can't get a good look in 10 seconds, it's because the defense is playing good defense. And these are basketball situations and not just standing around. So I really think that will improve everything. And then where it's really going to make a difference is in the fourth quarter, because the average time time for possessions, each possession, goes way up in the fourth quarter. We all know this. We've all seen the games where we're milking 35, 50, minute 10, to try to shorten the game, and it's just interminable. And it's awful, and it's not basketball. And people go, "Oh, well, just go play defense, go get the ball." It's like, you know what? Play offense. You can't really play defense if the other team is not playing offense. And if one team's not playing basketball and they're just playing keep away, then I don't know what the point is of that. But then when you look at these other states, they all say, "Boy, we had this problem, the exact same problem we have of stalling, and it went away immediately because the shot clock immediately fixes it." You can't do it. And then, what I'm kind of interested to see is when we do get the shot clock, teams going for a 2-for-1, things like that. Late game situations will get so much more interesting. It will reward the better coached teams more than anything. And I just think it will improve the quality of basketball by so much more than we even are thinking, and just in terms of eliminating the stall. I think it'll improve the quality of basketball for the entire game. It will reward the better coached teams and the teams with more skilled players more so than just sticking your head in the sand and hoping your lead holds up. And then, you still got to make your free throws. And maybe if we can figure out how to get the 1-on-1 back, because the 1-on-1 is awesome. And I don't know why we got rid of it. It's the dumbest idea in the world to get rid of that. Missing the front end of a 1-on-1 with like a minute to go, 10 seconds to go, tie game, something like that is just, it's one of the great dramatic moments in the game. And we just took it away for, some idea that kids get hurt on the rebounding action was the argument I heard. And that's I can't remember a kid getting hurt in the rebounding action on a free throw. So the other big hurdle that people mention is you got to have a clock operator. This one's a little more legitimate. The cost of the clock itself is just a dumb excuse that people use to try to end the conversation quicker. Getting a clock operator is a little trickier. They couldn't figure out how to operate the clock in Bangor during the tournament, which sounds like a Bangor problem because I didn't see that anywhere else. And getting volunteers and getting people who you can pay is tricky. I mean, paying for it's not hard. You can pay for it in the same way. It's a sponsorship thing. You just say, "Hey, Jim Bob's Car Emporium is sponsoring tonight's." You put in the program, they're sponsoring tonight's shot clock operator. $50. There you go. You've only got to get a couple games worth of this to make it work. So in some states, though, they only use. I'm trying to remember which state this was. I looked at a bunch. Some states they only use the shot clock for varsity games, so that minimizes the need. That's a lot easier to get those 18 home games you're gonna have to cover or if you do double headers, it's easier, I guess, than if you have to get the freshman team and the JV team and whatever. And no one's really stalling in the freshman game, I don't think. So I could see that being a pretty viable solution. All we really need it for is the varsity games. So that is an option. Nate Case, from the Penobscot Valley coach, said when he was in Canada, one thing they would do is and it was a pretty small, because Canada's had a shot clock forever. It was a pretty small town, and what they would do is the boys team would run the clock for the girls game, and the girls team would run the clock for the boys team and boys game, and it was part of their community service. So that's if you have that sort of schedule, if you have the schedule where you're not playing on the same day, that's a thing that could easily work. And it's just a situation of getting creative with it. It's, you don't necessarily need to pay someone $50 to run the clock. I mean, it could be a student, it could be a manager, it could be someone, working off getting some community service sort of thing, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that complicated. There are people who could do it. And I do realize that there are some programs where it could be tricky, like your North Havens, where you've got an enrollment of like 20 kids. Then you're gonna have to get a parent to do it or something like that, or you're gonna have to pay someone. But I think there's only, maybe 10 programs where that's gonna be a real issue. It's just a question of people getting creative and finding a way to make it work. And I think a lot of the hesitancy and a lot of the pushback on this is literally from people not wanting to do that, because a lot of the pushback is from ADs. Coaches are, last I heard, they did a poll and coaches were overwhelmingly in favor of it for obvious reasons. And ADs were largely against it because they have to figure out all of this stuff. They have to find the money. If the money doesn't come from somewhere else, they have to get the clock operator, things like that. And it's one less thing for them to do, or it's one more thing they have to do. And they got enough going on, and I get it, but it's also it's coming. It's inevitable. It's coming, and it's part of the job. So it is what it is, and you're going to have to figure it out. And you've got some time to figure it out, but it's coming fast. And it's, there's all those parables about getting ready for winter. Because it's a coming. And I had one other thing that I didn't write down. What was it? So clock operator, fundraising, and I think that's it. So they tried this at the Civic Center a couple years ago. One other argument is that the kids will, how will we adjust, whatever. They tried this at the Civic Center a couple years ago. The kids adjusted almost instantly. It took like a quarter for them to go, oh, right, there's a shot clock. Okay. And then the table had a little more trouble because there would be situations, because everyone sort of said, okay, I've watched enough games with shot clocks. I get it. I know how this works. And then something would come up and they go, oh, wait, what's the rule here again? Wait, what do we do? And it would take a minute, quick little huddle together, and they go, oh, right, okay, carry on. And it was an exhibition game, so it was fine. But it was so much more enjoyable. It was so much better. The kids figured it out right away because they've been watching shot clock basketball their entire lives. They've been watching NBA games. They've been watching college games. They get it. They understand how it works. The parents understand how it works. The coaches understand how it works. It's not some weird new concept we're throwing in. It's not like we're throwing in a 4-point line and everyone's going, wait, what's happening now? So the adjustment real fast for pretty much everyone. The refs will have a few more rules to learn, but they'll figure it out pretty quickly because, again, it's not some weird concept. It's a thing we've all been watching our entire lives. And we all know how it works, and we all know that it's better. Like, if you took the shot clock out of the college games this weekend, it would be a disaster. And we all know that. We know it would be terrible for the game to take it away. We know the game is 100% better with it. It's the reason the NBA put it in the first place way back when was because of the same problems we're having now. And they haven't even adjusted the time on it. It was so successful. Their original plan, someone goes, hey, what about 24 seconds? Because there's 24 hours in a day. And I think it was like the Syracuse owner or something. And they went, yeah, sure, let's try that. And they're like, hey, that's perfect. Let's keep it. And until, the Lakers Golden State game the other day, which whatever that disaster was, it's worked perfectly fine. So it's going to be great. It's going to be here within 5 years, maybe faster. There are incoming freshmen who I think will probably be playing with a shot clock before they graduate. So what we have to do is figure out how to do it. We have to, if you're one of the people who's against it, Just suck it up and realize that the world is changing on you. You can't have the peach baskets back. We're going to have a 3-point line going forward, regardless of what that dude on Facebook says. We're going to have a shot clock going forward. It's going to be better. And we just have to figure out how to make it work because it's happening. So just deal with that and have a moment to, pour one out for your the loss of your stall ball days and the Bob Symbolic era of winning 9-7 or whatever nonsense that was, and just accept that this is going to be the new reality. Just accept it. It's coming. It's happening. Get out of the way. All right, that is pretty much it for the show. We have some more people coming up, some cool guests coming up, and I'm going to try to get more regular on doing these. I think what happened last year is I read this thing that said, hey, you should be on a schedule so people know when the show's going to be, and then I got off the schedule because of life, and I got my yearly flu, post-tournament flu or whatever it was. Anyway, and I got off the schedule, and then you're off the schedule, you're off the schedule. So now I'm screw the schedule. I'm just going to do them when I do them. So you might get 3 of these a week. You might get 1 every 3 weeks. We'll see. But I got some cool ones coming up. And that's going to be it. This has been a production of MaineBasketballRankings.com, your source for the most comprehensive coverage of Maine high school basketball from Ashland to York and everywhere in between. This podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts and in a bunch of places you don't. If you enjoy it, please leave a nice review because it helps out with algorithms. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.